Welcome to today's deep dive. I want you to just imagine looking out your window at a massive thunderstorm
Right, yeah.
and realizing the deity that you're picturing in your head isn't actually controlling the weather, like the deity is the weather.
Yes, exactly.
You sent us this truly extraordinary stack of notes to analyze today, specifically centered around a philosophical and poetic essay called "The Goddess That Kisses Herself."
It's a fascinating text.
It really is. And our mission for your deep dive today is to extract the core insights from these sources to basically completely transform how you view the physical world, ancient mythology, and, well, even human chemistry.
Yeah, because it demands a massive shift in perspective right from the very first pages. I mean,
Yeah.
usually when we default to mythological imagery involving storms, we construct this hierarchy,
Like a boss and an employee.
Exactly. We picture a sovereign with a weapon. You look up at a thunderhead, and the cultural muscle memory is to imagine some bearded figure on a mountain just hurling a lightning bolt downward.
Yeah, there is a clear commander and the thing being commanded.
Uh-huh.
A tree splinters in the valley, and we interpret that as, like, a targeted strike, the wrath of some external manager.
Which is strangely comforting to the human mind,
Oh,
actually.
totally.
We like the idea that someone is at the controls, even if that someone is angry. But that framework relies on a tangible distance between the one who acts and the environment being acted upon.
Right.
But the text you provided systematically dismantles that entire control room in the sky. It introduces a radically different cosmology where there is literally zero distance between the deity's will and her expression.
Right. She doesn't summon the rain from a throne. She falls.
Yes, she doesn't call the wind, she moves.
The essay insists that we treat this not just as poetry or, a nice metaphor, but as an actual physical theology. It's theology stated in the language the weather actually speaks.
Exactly.
She's the temperature, she's the moisture, the barometric pressure, the charge.
Uh-huh.
By occupying the full range of her own elemental body all at the same time, she is in this state of perpetual self-encounter.
And to really grasp that perpetual encounter, the text points us to the most visible autobiography of the system, which is the hydrological cycle, water.
Right.
The text describes water evaporating from the earth, cooling into the suspended ocean of light we call clouds, and then eventually releasing to fall back down. It labels this the circuit of self-return.
Okay, let's unpack this because I kept thinking about that phrase, circuit of self-return.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about it, it's like the universe's ultimate closed-loop feedback system.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
It's not two strangers meeting. It's like breathing out on a freezing winter morning and watching your own breath condense in the air right in front of you.
Oh, wow, yes.
It's your own internal warmth returning to you as a visible physical form. The atmosphere is just doing that, but on a planetary scale.
What's fascinating here is that the physical form is crucial to the author's argument. The text argues that the sky does not kiss the earth as a stranger. The sky kisses the earth as a version of itself that has actually taken on solidity. The goddess is constantly drawing her scattered, aerated cloud form back into her dense-rooted earthen form. She is, as the essay so vividly puts it, returning to her own mouth.
Which completely reorients the whole concept of the sacred. I mean, the divine isn't standing above the atmosphere observing it.
No, not at all.
The weather is the divine looking at itself. It is pure self-recognition.
And, well, that self-recognition isn't always gentle,
Definitely not.
If we accept that the hydrological cycle is this continuous, sprawling embrace, we have to look at how that connection manifests in really extreme conditions. The text identifies specific weather events as signatures of contact, and the most violent signature is lightning.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because this requires a huge mental leap.
It does.
When you or I see lightning, our biological instinct is fear, right? We see a weapon. We see destruction tearing through the sky. But the text frames a lightning strike not as an attack, but as a reunion. Is thunder basically just the atmosphere shouting, aha?
Yeah, basically. And the underlying physics actually supports that poetic reframing beautifully. Just think about the mechanics of a lightning strike.
Okay.
We know a charge builds in the cloud, and a reciprocal charge builds in the earth below. The text points out that these are not two separate, warring electrical systems that just happen to collide.
Right.
They are a single field that has temporarily differentiated into two poles of itself.
So it's one system pretending to be two, just so it can experience the rush of reconnecting.
Yeah.
Like the positive charge reaching up from the ground, the negative charge reaching down from the cloud.
Exactly. The bolt is the goddess bridging the gap between two expressions of herself. It's a circuit completing a path that was always fundamentally one thing.
Wow.
And that completely reframes thunder, too. Thunder isn't a warning or a battle cry. Self-recognition at that massive, instantaneous scale naturally displaces error and produces massive force. The thunder is simply the atmosphere registering the exact moment of contact.
The atmosphere shouting, aha, as the circuit closes. That mechanism makes so much sense when the text brings up Oya, the Yoruba goddess of winds and lightning.
Yes, Oya is the perfect example.
The author points out that Oya isn't a deity sitting on a cloud directing the storm. She is the storm's own intelligence walking upright. She is what the storm chooses to be when it becomes conscious of itself.
That idea of atmospheric intelligence is a perfect bridge to the next signature the text explores, because it contrasts the explosive, dramatic reunion of lightning with what it calls the intimate kiss.
Which is fog.
Right, fog.
The section on fog completely altered how all experience a misty morning from now on. I mean, if lightning is a sudden, violent self-recognition, fog is a prolonged suspension.
Yeah, it's very different.
It's what happens when moisture saturation reaches a point where the boundary between states just completely dissolves.
Air becomes water, and water becomes air, with no clear membrane distinguishing the two. The text notes that you can't see through fog for the exact same reason. You can't see clearly into a mirror held too close to your face.
Oh, that's such a good image.
Right. It is pure, blinding self-reflection. The goddess hasn't decided whether to fall as rain or rise as evaporation. She is just holding herself in a state of suspended indecision.
I loved the detail about auditory dampening in that section. Like when you walk into a dense fog, the world goes incredibly quiet. Sound loses its directional clarity.
Yeah, it gets muffled.
Exactly. The text suggests that when you are in fog, you are standing inside a consciousness that is resting between states. The sensory deprivation kind of forces you into the interior experience of the weather rather than just observing it from the outside.
And this permanent contact between states brings us to the final landscape signature mentioned in your sources, which is the horizon, the unending kiss.
The line that holds across every landscape on Earth.
Yes.
The text argues that the horizon isn't a place where two separate things, sky and ground, actually touch. It's an optical illusion.
A very persistent illusion.
Right, created by a single, continuous entity folding back on herself so completely that she produces the appearance of an edge.
And you can never travel to the horizon. No matter how far you walk, it recedes because you are already standing completely inside the embrace. The horizon completes itself around every visible point on Earth simultaneously.
It's mind-blowing. But what's crazy is that this isn't just one modern essayist's creative theory. What the text reveals next is that this highly specific physical theology is actually a hidden blueprint.
Yeah, it's everywhere once you look for it.
It's hiding in plain sight across wildly diverse ancient human traditions.
Staggeringly diverse traditions. If we connect this to the bigger picture and look at global mythology through this lens of a self-kiss, we see the same atmospheric mechanics mapped out again and again.
Right.
Take the Egyptian goddess Nut, for example.
Oh, yeah. She's usually depicted arched entirely over the world. Her fingers touching the western horizon, her toes planted in the east.
Conventionally, we read that as a sky god and an earth god, like two different people.
Sure, that's the standard interpretation.
But the text emphasizes that Nut isn't observing the sky from the outside. She is the sky's interior surface. And when she bends downward to meet Jeb, the earth body, it is not two separate deities engaging in a relationship.
It's one being.
Exactly. It is one being, the sky leaning heavily into its own ground form. It's an ancient culture describing the atmosphere, distributing itself across different densities.
It's like early humanity didn't have Doppler radar, so they mapped weather patterns using the language of consciousness.
Yes.
Without satellites to track a high-pressure system moving south, they tracked the shifting moods of a local deity, which allowed them to predict weather patterns and seasonal shifts just as accurately. We see this exact functional mapping in the Celtic tradition, too, with the Kailich.
Which is really interesting because the Kailich is often reduced in modern retellings to just a hag associated with winter, a harbinger of the cold.
But the text reframes her completely. She isn't bringing the winter. She is winter's own sentient awareness. She is the intelligence inside the thermodynamic system that knows exactly where the frost will set in the valley.
Yeah.
And when spring arrives and the great thaw happens, it isn't her defeat. She isn't banished by a spring goddess.
She transforms into Brigid. It is a shift in thermal register.
Yes.
The freezing and thawing isn't a battle between competing seasonal gods. It's a single atmospheric intelligence shifting from ice to the spring breath. It's the goddess kissing herself across the axis of the solar year.
And the Welsh goddess Arianrhod fits right in here, too.
Oh, absolutely. She sits in her tower exactly where the pressure differentials and the tide crossings meet. She occupies that specific zone of weather making.
The author just finds this everywhere. Like in the Andean tradition, Pachamama isn't just the dirt of the earth. She breathes.
Right, the atmosphere.
The rolling mist, the sudden violent storms, the rapid clearings. That is her literal breath cycle, which implies we are living inside the lungs of a massive living system.
And in the Greek tradition, Iris is the rainbow. The text points out that Iris isn't merely a messenger running errands between Mount Olympus and the mortal world.
Right, she's not just a courier.
She is the transition phenomenon. She is light physically intersecting with suspended water. She is the visual evidence that the sky and earth are already in contact. These figures are what the weather is when it takes on a name.
But, just as you get comfortable thinking about this on a vast planetary scale like tracking weather systems across the Andes or ancient Egypt, the text brings the storm violently, intimately down to the human level.
Yes, down to our own bodies.
It argues that this exact same atmospheric physics applies to human relationships.
And the logic actually holds. I mean, if the goddess is the sum total of the environment, she must also incarnate into denser, localized forms. Human bodies are mostly water and electrical charge.
Right, but so what does this all mean? This is where I have to challenge the text application a bit.
Go for it.
The essay essentially argues that when two human bodies meet carrying different differentiated charges, like a warm front colliding with a cold front, we mislabel the event.
Right.
We call it chemistry. Or we say, I don't know why, but when that person walked into the room, the whole atmosphere changed.
Yeah, we've all felt that.
Wait, so if human chemistry is literally just two atmospheric fronts colliding without intention, if I'm just a high-pressure system bumping into a low-pressure system, doesn't that strip us of all personal agency? Are we just helpless weather vanes bumping into each other?
It's a vital pushback. But the text isn't erasing human agency, it's removing human anxiety.
Oh, okay.
It insists the physics of our interactions is identical to the physics of lightning. You have two expressions of one atmospheric system encountering each other at a boundary zone. The difference in charge between you and another person isn't an opposition to be fixed. It's the required condition to produce a strike.
So the ionized gap between two people closes without either body having actively caused the spark.
Exactly. The author has this brilliant, clarifying line in the text. Lightning does not require blame. It requires the correct conditions.
Wow.
Think about how often we agonize over why a connection with someone was so intensely volatile, or why it suddenly sparked out of nowhere. We constantly try to assign blame or intention or destiny to these interactions.
We psychoanalyze the storm.
We totally do. But the text suggests that if a high-pressure system moving down from the north meets warm Gulf moisture rising from the south, a storm is inevitable. It's just weather.
It's just weather.
The sudden turbulence that follows a human connection and the profound, heavy calm that follows the turbulence, they are entirely appropriate meteorologically. It's a circuit completing itself.
Which forces a massive philosophical pivot for the reader. Because if we are essentially walking weather systems, how are we actually supposed to live with the unpredictability of the storm? As a species, we are deeply obsessed with forecasting. We want the 10-day meteorological forecast, and we want the 5-year life plan. We externalize the storm to feel safe from it. We want to know exactly what the variables are going to do.
This raises an important question because the text explicitly tells us to practice unfolding instead of predicting.
Okay, but how?
Well, to understand that, we have to look at the distinction between information and interior experience. Weather, the author argues, is not actually chaotic. It is incredibly precise. It just contains way too many variables for our external models to track simultaneously.
But the goddess doesn't need to track the variables. She is the variables.
Precisely. She doesn't have to predict herself. She doesn't forecast what the storm will do because she knows what it is to be the storm from the inside.
Right.
Information is viewing a system from the outside. That's your 10-day forecast. Interior experience is knowing the system by being fully present within it.
So when the text instructs us to stop trying to predict her, it's telling us to stop trying to view our own lives from the outside.
Yes. The instruction is to recognize that every front in your life has a source. Turbulence, whether in the sky or in your relationships, isn't a mistake or a failure of planning.
Yeah.
Turbulence is simply the friction of two expressions of the same being negotiating the terms of their reunion. Total self-knowledge doesn't come from accurate prediction. It comes from absolute presence in your own process.
Absolute presence in your own process. I love that. To bring all of these threads together for you,
Yeah.
for the listener, just think about the sheer scale of the journey we've just taken through your sources.
It's a big journey.
It really is. We started by looking out the window, shifting our perception of a simple rainstorm from just water falling out of a cloud to a continuous physical self-kiss.
Yeah.
We trace the mechanics of that hidden blueprint through the geometry of Egyptian skies, the thermodynamics of Celtic winters, and the breathing mist of the Andes.
Unbelievable scope.
And then we mapped those massive atmospheric systems onto our own human romance, realizing that our chemistry with another person is just the closing of an atmospheric circuit that requires conditions, not blame.
Right.
And finally, we arrived at the radical discipline of learning to unfold, to be present in our own turbulence rather than constantly trying to forecast our own future.
It fundamentally alters your posture toward your own environment.
It does. Next time you step outside into a dense fog, or the next time you feel the barometric pressure drop right before thunder rattles your windows, you won't just see a meteorological event happening to you.
No, not at all.
You'll recognize a massive consciousness in transition. You'll perceive a vast, unbroken embrace that you are already standing completely inside. You can't reach the horizon because the kiss already surrounds you.
And that reality leaves you with one truly profound mystery to consider long after this deep dive ends. If every storm, every strike of lightning, and every drop of rain is simply the goddess completing her circuit, finding her own mouth, and encountering herself in all that glorious noise and friction, what does it mean for you when the weather finally breaks? When the storm passes, the pressure stabilizes, and you are left standing outside on a perfectly still, quiet, cloudless day. Is that silence simply an absence of weather, or is it another, much deeper form of her self-recognition?